So hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on pronouns. And before we start with our grade 8 English lesson on pronouns, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged into aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts and then grade 8. All right, so once we have selected the subject of language arts, grade 8, then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of pronouns. And there is quite a few lessons to do under the chapter of pronouns, right? Which means that we will probably do it over a period of 2 days. So we will be doing our chapter of pronouns. And we said our chapter is pronouns. The subject is English language arts, grade 8. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today under the chapter of pronouns, it's to choose between subject and object pronoun. It's to identify pronouns and their antecedents. And it's to use the pronoun that agrees with the antecedent and to use reflexive pronoun. So that is going to be our 4 lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of pronouns. All right, so we are doing our lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So even now we're going to go to aplusstudents.ca. And if you feel like you want to go back, recap, you can go to aplusstudents.ca. The chapter, subject, grade, as well as lesson is shown. All right, so we are going to continue now. So you can use a subject pronoun as the subject of a sentence or a clause, right? And a subject pronoun, it basically tells us who is doing something. And it is usually at the beginning of a sentence. So it's at the beginning of a sentence and it basically tells us who is doing something. You can also use a subject pronoun after a linking verb like am, is, are, was, were, or be. And the subject pronouns are I, you, he, me, she, it, we, and they. So we say that the subject pronouns are words like I. It's like, for example, I am maybe 13 years old, right? You, he, she, it, we, and they, right? So those are subject pronouns, right? And we say that the subject pronouns, it tells us who is doing something, and that's usually at the beginning of the sentence. So if we look at a few examples, it says, after finishing the experiment, I showed my teacher the results. So after finishing the experiment, I showed my teacher the results. So basically, the pronoun is I, right? And that is the subject of the sentence. It tells us who is doing something. All right. So I is basically the subject of the sentence, and it tells us who is doing something. And most common, you'll find I at the beginning of a sentence. All right, let's go to aplusstudents.ca. So we need to choose between subject and object pronoun. So we said that you can use a subject pronoun as a subject of a sentence or a clause. And we say that the subject, it is basically, it tells us who is doing something, right? And a subject you will usually find at the beginning of a sentence. And you can also use a subject pronoun after linking a verb like am, is, are, was, were, or be. And our subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. So we see that the subject I, or let's say I, is basically the subject within that sentence, right? Where we said, after finishing my experiment, I showed my teacher the results. And we say that the subject pronoun I is the subject of the sentence. So you can also use an object pronoun, right? So you get a subject pronoun, where it tells you who is doing something. And then you get an object pronoun, right? And after an action verb, so an object pronoun after an action verb, right? You can also use an object pronoun after a preposition. Like, for example, at, for, of, on, to, or with. And when it comes to object pronouns, right? Then the object pronouns, they're like the most common ones to use are me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. So can you basically see the difference between an object pronoun as well as a subject pronoun? So the subject pronoun, we said it tells us who is doing something, whereas an object pronoun, we find after either a preposition. And with the subject pronoun, we have our common pronouns like I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. Whereas with our object pronoun, it it is me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. So if we look at here, it says after finishing the experiment, my teacher showed me the results. So my teacher showed me the results. And if we compare the object pronoun to the subject pronoun says that after finishing the experiment, I showed my teacher the results. So with subject pronoun, it's more like you doing something personally compared to an object pronoun is where somebody else does something. So somebody else does something maybe that is related or directed to you. All right. So now if we look at the pronouns, right? It's to select the correct pronoun to complete the sentence. When we gave Nathan a comic book for his birthday, he thanked me, thanked you, he thanked us. He thanked you, me, or us. So in this case, we can say that he thanked us because it specifically says when we gave Nathan a comic book. So we can say he thanked us, right? Because we, us. I always rinse the dishes before I put it in the dishwasher. So I always rinse the dishes before I put it in the dishwasher. So we need to, after put, we need to select the pronoun. So I always rinse the dishes before I put, we can say, before I put them in the dishwasher. So them in the dishwasher. All right, so now let's go to our test. All right, let's go to our test where we're choosing between a subject pronoun as well as an object pronoun. We need to select the correct pronoun to complete the sentence. Everyone in the history class had read the document except for, do we say except for he or except for him? So everyone in the history class had read the document except for him, right? Except for him, we can't say except for he. So him is correct. Yeah, so well done. Him is correct. The toddler wobbled towards her or towards she with his arms waving in the air. So we see that the toddler wobbled towards her with his arms waving in the air. So her. And her is correct. Well done. And I always rinse the dishes before I put, is it before them in the dishwasher or before they in the dishwasher? So I always rinse the dishes before I put them in the dishwasher or before I put they in the dishwasher. So we said that I always rinse them before I put it in the dishwasher. Yes, so well done. Well done. Bob sat with Bob sat with, do we say with we or with us during the department meeting? So Bob sat with, so we can sat with us, right? During the department meeting. So us, yes, us is correct. And then, is Diana going to the comic book convention without I or without me? So is Diana going to the comic book convention without I or without me? So without I or without me. All right, so we can say it's without me. And that is correct. So well done. All right, so now we're going to identify pronouns and their antecedents. So now we are identifying pronouns and their antecedents, right? And we said that the pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun or it takes the place of noun phrases. And the noun or the noun phrases that the pronoun refers to is called antecedents, right? So it's a noun or noun phrase that the pronoun refers to, and we call that the antecedent. For example, Rachel is tired, even though she slept for 10 hours last night. So which means that our noun, which we can identify as Rachel, and the antecedent is, so basically the noun Rachel is the antecedent of the pronoun, which is she. So she is our pronoun, and we can then say that the noun is our antecedent. Apparently, Tom and Sarah just landed. Who is picking them up? And the noun phrase Tom and Sarah is the antecedent of the pronoun them. So it's either they or them. And then we have, surprisingly, my brother's basketball team won all of its games this season. So it's its games this season. And the noun phrase, my brother's basketball team, is the antecedent and the pronoun its. And then taking care of pets can be difficult, but it is quite worthwhile, right? So once again, a noun or pronoun it replaces or takes the place of a noun, right? Or a noun phrase. And then the noun or the noun phrase that the pronoun refers to is called the antecedent. All right, so now we're going to select the noun whose antecedent is my sister and I. It says, when my sister and I were traveling in Mexico, we explored the ancient ruins at Edward at Teotihuacan, right? So now we need to look for a word that is my sister and I, which refers to that. So we say that my sister and I were traveling in Mexico. We explored the ancient ruins at So basically, if we refer to my sister and I, then we can say that my sister and I, then we can refer to it as we. So my sister and I, it is we. So here it says that we need to select the pronoun whose antecedent is my sister and I, and we said it is we, because we refers to my sister and I. Let us go to the test. So we're going to identify the pronoun and its antecedent. And remember, we said that the antecedent is the noun or noun phrase, right? That takes that place of the pronoun, which is either she, he, we, or so on. So some people believe the same seasons are caused by Earth's distance from the sun, but they aren't. Earth's tilt, not in distance from the sun, determines the season. So we need to select the pronoun whose antecedent is seasons. So some people believe that their season or the seasons are caused by Earth's distance from the sun, but they aren't. Earth's tilt, No, in distance, not in distance from the sun determines the seasons. So do we say the seasons, they, which is the seasons, or do we say the seasons what the double is? But if they say we must select the pronoun, then we can say it is, yeah, the second one. Well done, which is they. And they is correct because they specifically just want the pronoun. So in the 1700s, tobacco was so valuable that it was used as currency in many American colonies. So we need to select the pronoun whose antecedent is tobacco. Is it tobacco? Is it it or tobaccos? So basically, it says in the 1700s, tobacco was so valuable that it was used as currency in many American colonies. So we can say it, which refers to tobacco. And it is correct. Well done. Because remember, we are only selecting the pronouns. So we can say that schooners were once the most important ships in North America, but by 1800s they were only really used for coastal trade and fish. So if we choose the pronoun, then we will choose they, and they refer to, yes, which is the schooners. Well done, and they are correct. And the Constitution was written in 1787, and its first 10 amendments were added in 1791 to describe individuals' rights in details. So, do we say the Constitution? So, we need to choose the correct one. Is it the Constitution, it's, or the Constitution? Yeah, let's choose that one. It's. And it is correct, which refers to the Constitution. And then Oprah Winfrey used the success of her career as a television talk show host to launch a magazine and a television network. So we need to select the pronoun. Is it Oprah Winfrey, her, or Oprah Winfrey's? So if we select the pronoun Oprah Winfrey, we will say it is her. So we say that in physics, we learn that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. So if we were to select the pronoun whose antecedent is energy, then we won't be able to. So it. And that is correct. So we are now going to this third one, which is to use the pronoun that agrees with the antecedent. So the pronoun that agrees with the antecedent in bold. So Rudy and I plan to vote for. Complete the sentence with the pronoun that agrees with the antecedent. So it's Rudy and I plan to vote for our friend Michelle in the city council election. So our friend, right? So he's voting for our friend. Then yeah, it says Mother Teresa first worked as a high school teacher before devoting her life to working with poor, India's poor. Is it just India's poor? Full stop. So then the second one is she dedicated or devoted her life. And then when Anne and I stayed home on Friday night, we did our laundry and watched a movie. So now we are selecting the pronouns. All right. It says the element sulfur is, okay, before we go on to that, it says complete the sentence with a pronoun that agrees with the antecedent in bold. So the element sulfur is a yellow solid at room temperature. So the element sulfur is a yellow solid at room temperature. When burnt, however, melts into a red liquid. So we need to complete the sentence with the pronoun that agrees with the antecedent. So the pronoun. So the element sulfur is a yellow solid at room temperature. When burnt, however, it melts into a red liquid. So if we choose our pronoun, is it it or the element sulfurs? It or the element sulfurs? Sulfurs. All right, so we will choose it melts into red liquid. So it is our pronoun. So there are thousands of snail species. Some are used throughout the world as a source of food, right? So do we refer to the snail species as them or do we just say snail species? So do we refer to the snail species as them or do we just say snail species? All right, so if we choose our pronoun, we will say it is them. And then my sister and I went camping with stepdad. He snored so loudly that we couldn't sleep. So basically, my sister and I went camping with our stepdad, right? And he snored so loudly that we couldn't sleep. Our stepdad is correct. So when Anne and I stayed home on Friday night, we can say we did our laundry and watched a movie. So we did our laundry and watched a movie. All right. And if we want to complete the sentence with a pronoun that refers back to the subject in bold, you can say, I wish Aunt Anna would stop worrying about factors that are beyond her control. So remember, we said that a reflexive pronoun is when we use words like self and selves, right? Self and selves. And we had to basically see the difference between a pronoun as well as a reflexive pronoun. So this is reflexive pronouns. So we said reflexive pronouns are pronouns that end in self or it ends in selves. And self and selves, it gives us an indication of either singular words or plural words or plural subjects, right? The singular subjects or plural subjects will basically give us an indication if it is a reflexive pronoun ending in self or reflexive pronouns ending in selves, right? And we said reflexive pronouns are pronouns that end in self or selves. And here are a few examples of reflexive pronouns. The subject is singular, right? And they would say I for myself, you for yourself, she for yourself, for herself, he for himself, and it for itself. And then we have our plural subjects, right? Which is reflexive pronoun, and we say it's either ourselves, yourselves, themselves. So now here it says that we need to complete the sentence with a pronoun that refers back to the subject in bold. So basically the reflexive pronoun, right? Which is I wish Aunt Anna would stop worrying about factors that are beyond her control. So here we can say the number one is herself. So I wish Aunt Anna would stop worrying about factors that are beyond her. So we're going to stick with herself, and that's a reflexive pronoun. It says that a reflexive pronoun, right, is used to refer back to a subject of the sentence or clause in which it appears. It should agree with the subject. So the reflexive pronoun, it needs to agree with the subject. And we held ourselves to some sort of soup, right? Self. All right. So remember we said with the reflexive pronoun, right, it needs to refer back to your noun, right? Or your noun phrase. So now let us go to our test. It says we need to complete the sentence with a pronoun that refers back to the subject in bold. So I wish Aunt Anna would stop worrying about factors that are beyond her control. So do we still say she or do we say herself? So we can say I, let's choose herself, which is the reflexive pronoun. And herself is correct because that is a reflexive pronoun. We need to complete the sentence with a pronoun that refers back to the subject in old. You must all strap in now, the commander announced. It's time to head to the International Space Station. So is it you or yourselves? So is it you or yourselves? You must all strap in now. Yourselves. Because remember we said that the it refers back to the subject. So yourself it is. Well done. Your uncle every makes a fool of every time he gets on the dance floor. Is it makes a fool of he or makes a fool of himself every time he is on the dance floor? All right, so yes, we will choose himself, and that is